The challenge was delivered with the casual cruelty of someone ordering a drink. She leaned against the alloy railing, long ears flicking once as if brushing away boredom, and said that if I defeated her, she would share my bed tonight. The way she said human made it sound like a temporary condition. Laughter rippled through the chamber, filtered through translators that struggled heroically with alien sarcasm. I considered declining on principle, but principle had never survived well in frontier stations, and besides, I was already smiling. She expected bluster. I gave her a nod and asked where she preferred to lose. That earned a pause, then a grin sharp enough to be registered as a weapon by the station's sensors. Around us, the combat ring adjusted itself, floor plates shifting, gravity humming uncertainly as if even the machinery wanted to watch. She stretched with theatrical confidence, bones clicking faintly, augmented muscles humming beneath skin that looked human until you noticed how little it cared about impact. She told me her name, which translated roughly as "victory arrives eventually," and asked if humans named their graves before or after losing. I told her we usually let our enemies do the paperwork. The rules were simple, which should have been my first warning. No lethal force, no external weapons, station-approved enhancements only. She laughed when she saw my gear authorization list. No implants, no reflex boosters, just a suit that regulated temperature and bruised pride. She tapped the side of her head, where a faint shimmer betrayed something expensive and illegal in 3 systems, and said this would be quick. I asked if quick victories were culturally important or just emotionally comforting. When the field activated, the floor tilted and the gravity slid sideways, not enough to throw us, just enough to make arrogance slip. She came at me like a solution she'd already solved, fast and precise, every strike calibrated. I avoided badly, which seemed to offend her more than resistance. She narrated my impending defeat between blows, explaining which bones would crack first and why my species had stopped evolving somewhere around optimism. I tripped over a gravity seam and apologized to the floor for landing on it. The audience laughed, including her, which bought me half a second. Half a second is a generous amount of time if you're stubborn. I didn't match her strength, so I matched her expectations and let them down. I let her chase, let her overcommit, joked about how her culture might benefit from cardio. The field shifted again, reacting to stress, and her perfect footwork faltered. She scowled, long ears flattening in irritation, and hit harder. I kept breathing. I kept getting up. Somewhere between her disbelief and my refusal to fall, something changed. When the round ended, neither of us was laughing. She looked at me as if I were a riddle that had learned to punch back, and for the first time, she stopped explaining the future. The second round began without ceremony, as if the station itself had grown impatient with our learning curve. Gravity pulsed instead of sliding now, like a bored god tapping a finger. She rolled her shoulders once, eyes locked on mine, long ears angling forward in a way I was starting to recognize as focus rather than threat. She said nothing this time. That worried me more than the insults. She moved faster. Not dramatically faster, just enough to make my assumptions outdated. A strike clipped my shoulder and my suit complained loudly, listing damage estimates with the tone of an accountant discovering fraud. I told it to relax, we were still solvent. She snorted despite herself and used the distraction to sweep my legs. I hit the floor, bounced once, and wondered briefly if humans evolved humor as a coping mechanism or a survival trait. I decided it didn't matter and rolled before she could make the decision for me. The field adapted again. The air thickened, charged particles biting at skin, turning every breath into a negotiation. Her implants adjusted instantly. Mine did not because I didn't have any. She noticed. Her expression flickered, something like confusion passing through arrogance, and she asked why I hadn't upgraded. I told her I preferred to lose honestly. She told me honesty was an inefficient strategy. I said so was underestimating people who kept standing up. She circled, testing, throwing lighter blows now, probing instead of punishing. I answered with timing, with angles, with the simple refusal to rush. Each time she expected collapse, I gave her persistence. Each time she escalated, I adapted just enough to annoy her. The audience quieted, not because the fight was less brutal, but because it had become complicated. She misjudged a pulse in the gravity field and stumbled. I caught her wrist without thinking. For a fraction of a second, neither of us moved. Her eyes widened, not with fear, with interest. She twisted free and laughed, sharp and genuine, and accused me of being deceptively fragile. I thanked her and accused her of relying too much on being impressive. That earned me a knee to the ribs and a warning that my species talked too much. I agreed and suggested her species didn't listen enough. We collided again, sweat and static, breath and will, the field whining as if this wasn't what it had been designed for. By the end of the round, exhaustion leveled the field better than any regulation. Her strikes lost precision. Mine gained confidence. When the buzzer sounded, we stood apart, both breathing hard, both smiling despite ourselves. She shook her head once, long ears swaying, and said this wasn't how it was supposed to go. I told her that was my favorite kind of outcome. The final round began with a silence heavy enough to bend the station's sensors. The gravity settled into something almost polite, as if it wanted to give us a fair ending. She looked at me without a grin this time, long ears relaxed, posture open in a way that would have been alarming if I didn't already know how hard she could hit. She said her people believed the last exchange revealed truth. I said humans usually revealed truth when they were out of breath and out of excuses. She smiled just a little and said that explained a lot. We moved slower now, not because we were cautious, but because everything hurt. Every impact echoed through my bones like a complaint filed directly with my future self. Her movements lost their earlier sharpness, but not their intent. She still fought like someone who expected the universe to agree with her. I fought like someone who had learned it wouldn't. When she charged, I stepped aside instead of back. When she grabbed, I leaned in instead of away. She cursed in her own language, which the translator rendered as a deeply unhelpful weather forecast. At one point she knocked me flat and stood over me, breathing hard, waiting for me to stay down. I considered it. I really did. Then I thought about how easy this had been supposed to be for her, how surprised she'd been that I existed in the space between blows. I got up, slowly. She laughed again, tired and incredulous, and said humans were exhausting. I told her she had no idea. The field flared once more, reacting to accumulated stress, and the floor lurched. She slipped. I caught her again, steadier this time, and instead of striking, I held on. The rules didn't forbid it. She froze, then tried to pull free, then stopped trying. The moment stretched until it snapped under the weight of choice. She lowered her head, long ears tilting back, and said enough. The buzzer sounded late, confused by surrender. The chamber erupted, officials arguing with algorithms, spectators shouting opinions no one had asked for. She stepped back and straightened, then did something no one expected. She bowed. Not deeply, but sincerely. She said I had won, not because I was stronger, but because I had endured without needing to prove anything. Her culture would argue about that for generations. I said they were welcome to start without me. Later, when the station quieted and the consequences lined up like unread messages, she found me again. She reminded me of her promise, then added that respect came first. I realized I wasn't the man who'd accepted the challenge for a joke and a distraction. I'd learned the weight of staying upright, of meeting force without becoming it. She leaned close and said defeating her had changed things. I said it had changed me too. We walked out together, not as victor and prize, but as equals who had chosen not to walk away. The future felt uncertain, political, inconvenient. For once, that didn't bother me.